After Greek elections Sunday, the risks the country would exit the euro have receded, for the moment anyway. Good morning, I'm Rolf Winkler. Welcome to the News Hub. We've got Charles Farrell joining us in Athens. Charles, thanks for joining us today. Big news in Greece yesterday. Of course, the new Conservative Party. Let's just throw some graphics on screen here to catch people up. We've got, of course, the pro-bailout New Democracy Party won the Greek elections. They're a conservative party, and they're in favor of continuing I guess they're in favor of austerity measures. Pro-bailout parties win a majority of seats in the Greek parliament. And, well, world markets were really excited, but they're not that excited anymore. Charles, tell us about, this doesn't solve the problem, right? Where are we in Greece?
Sure. Well, Greece faces a legion of problems. We could spend half an hour discussing them and not really scratch the surface. The most significant, most immediate problem is that, yet again, it is running out of money. So Greece needs another tranche of money from its Eurozone rescuers, who have promised more than 200 billion euros in aid over the past couple of years, but it is doled out in small pieces. The Europeans want to keep the Greeks on a fairly tight leash. So Mr. Samaras, Antonis Samaras, is the leader of the New Democracy Party, the expected prime minister. Essentially his first act in office is going to have to be to go to Brussels, to go meet with other European leaders, and to try to negotiate the terms of the continuation of Greece as a lifeline from Europe. That's what he wants to do. That was his mandate that he received in the election last night. But the question is, what sort of price will the Germans and others demand for the continuation of the lifeline that Greece badly needs?
Great. Now joining us, we've also got Markets Hub host Paul Vigna here.
Hey, Rolf.
Paul,
Charles, how are you?
Tell us,
Good morning.
The market, of course, it's not reacting as well as people had thought.
Oh, no. Hey, Charles, I want to ask you about Cyprus, because that's an important one, right? No, actually, forget Cyprus. I want to talk about Spain. It's amazing, you know, these relief rallies, they're not even lasting overnight now. They're not even lasting into the start of New York trading. The futures are down about 60, 56 points, Dow futures. Charles, Spain has totally crowded out Greece, hasn't it?
Well, yeah, indeed. You know, Spanish bonds opened stronger this morning in London, and it lasted only about, half an hour or so. And then there was another batch of really bad data from the Bank of Spain. Spanish banks reported their non-performing loans were at an 18-year, that's 18-year, not 18-month high, which goes to just remind everybody of the extremely difficult situation that Spain finds itself in. And that really took the shine off of the very brief bit of relief that people got, that Greece didn't fall down the rabbit hole.
Charles, let's talk quickly about Greece. We're not falling down the rabbit hole yet, of course, but like you said, this doesn't solve the problem, and basically we're going to need some negotiation here between effectively the Germans and the Greeks to maybe make the austerity measures a little more palatable.
Indeed. I mean, that is what Samaras wants. Now, all of the parties, everybody running for election in Greece, practically everybody, there's some small fringe parties, but every major party running for elections wanted some form of renegotiation of the bailout. The far left party, Syriza, which had performed extremely well, it actually came in second at 27% or so. It had scored about 4% a couple of years ago. So they had pushed for a much tougher negotiation with Europe and effectively saying, we're ready to tear up the agreement. Samaras has adopted a much softer line, but he still does want some concessions. And he is prepared to go to Berlin, to go to Brussels and say, look, you asked for us, you asked for the Greek people to vote to continue to engage with Europe. We did it. Now we need some help. And the question is how Greeks asking for help will fall on the ears of parliamentarians and politicians in Berlin.
Charles, what is the risk that this Greek coalition collapses?
In the near term, it seems pretty narrow. The New Democracy Party is teaming up with PASOK, which is the socialist. That is about as across the aisle a coalition as you can possibly have. This is like the Democrats and the Republicans getting together and sharing power. The two parties are pretty committed to continuing the bailout. The problem is that if the Germans demand continued toughness, it could be difficult for those parties, even if they hold together themselves, to convince the Greek people that to accept more cuts.
Right, and Charles, that's the real bottom line here, right? The Germans don't really want to renegotiate the deal with the Greeks. They say, look, we have the deal in place. The Greeks have to live up to it. But how can they justify that when they just gave a sweetheart 3% deal, 3% loan deal to the Spaniards? How do they justify not giving anything to the Greeks, any kind of concessions? Clearly, Greece has fallen into a depression. I mean, that country has been, actually, you were there this week and you tell me, how do the Germans justify not, because they don't sound like they want to make any concessions right now. How do they justify not making concessions?
Well, they basically say, look, Greece already has received a lot of concessions. It received not one bailout, but two bailouts. We have cut Greece's interest rates all the way down to around 3%. We have said, Greece, you have 15, 20, 30 plus years to repay the loans that we gave you. They are basically saying, look, we've done a lot for this country, but we've reached the limits of our ability to help, and now it's up to the Greeks. That's been the line. The real political problem for Angela Merkel, the chancellor, is that softening the austerity measures in any form requires more money from the Germans. And that means going to the German parliament, which is very unfriendly to the Greek plight, and saying, you need to authorize more spending for Greece. And she absolutely, definitely does not want to do that.
Charles, I want to jump in and ask you one very fast last question. Greek banks, deposit flight, where are we there?
Well, you know, we have seen last week a pretty accelerated trickle, maybe even a stream of deposits out of Greece, the sort of anecdotal reports suggesting. But there was fear of a big run for the ATMs this morning. That is plainly not evident here in Athens. People are going about their business. There are no queues at ATMs. There are no, people grabbing briefcases of cash. The fears of something calamitous, it has not come to pass.